Hello, my name is Charity. I'm 28 years old and I'm based in Berkshire, and I'd describe myself as a blend of creativity, logic, and empathy. I'm also a proud mum to a beautiful little boy who was born in May last year, an experience that's completely reshaped the way I view the world. My journey into marketing and digital communications started with a love for psychology. I really struggled at school. I found it hard to learn and often became the class clown to escape from lessons. I did, however, make it to A-levels and was pushed into psychology as it was the only subject left with spaces in my cohort. However, unknown to me at the time, it was actually the best thing that could have ever happened, as I was lucky enough to have a brilliant teacher who really took the time to understand how I learnt best, through doing, researching and applying knowledge myself. Instead of making me sit and listen to the theory that she'd verbally teach the class, she let me write essays during lesson time, researching things for myself, which I found I loved and I was actually pretty good at. I ended up getting an A in psychology at A-level, which felt like a huge turning point and something I was never able to believe that I was going to achieve. That love of understanding people led me to study psychology at university at undergrad level, where I graduated with a first class honours. After that, I started working in a school environment in behaviour and safeguarding. Again, this was a job through convenience as it was a nearby secondary school, and I had no idea what I really wanted to do. I did, however, continue to be fascinated by human behaviour, and whilst I loved my job here, I really missed being creative. Lockdown in 2020 gave me the space to revisit that part of myself, and I fell in love with designing clothes. That's when I launched my own children's clothing brand to give me something to keep my creative brain ticking and a side hustle to make some more money. It's been a steep learning curve, but I've loved every moment. From sourcing and designing to marketing, building my website from scratch twice, leading all brand photography, doing customer service and running the social media side of things across many different platforms. It all clicked for me. This balance between human behaviour, creative expression and branding was exactly where I was meant to be. I started learning through Instagram and TikTok and then began doing online courses. I enjoyed the content so much and the impact that it had on my business was incredible, so I decided I wanted to continue learning. Thus, I enrolled in this MA in Marketing and Digital Communications to build on what I was seeing, doing and already learning and to try to bring everything together. Now, fast forward to today where I'm finishing that MA. Becoming a mum this year has been the most meaningful chapter of my life so far, but it's also been incredibly tough. My little boy was born very poorly and the future is still uncertain, but in a strange way that's been my fuel. It's made me even more determined to push forward with my business and create a life that gives us the flexibility to support him with everything he needs. My whole reason for pursuing the MA has changed into something more and has had more meaning and impact than I ever thought it would. This pitch will explore two further areas. First, I'll walk you through the major marketing and advertising trends I believe are essential for the future. I'll explore what the next generation of campaigns could do to truly connect, using case studies and insights from my own research project, which explore how gender equality is being challenged in campaigns promoting male-dominated careers. Second, I'll talk through my career progression and personal development. I'll reflect on how my own small business has evolved, what I've learned, how I've applied insights from the course, and the next direction I'm taking. This came directly from my own experience as a mum and what I've learned about representation and identity and branding. I'll also talk about what's next, how I plan to grow the business, how I'll use the findings from this research project in the real world, and how I see myself fitting into the broader marketing and digital communications landscape. So that's a bit about me, my journey so far, and what you can expect from this pitch. I'm excited to share it with you and hopefully leave you with a little bit of inspiration along the way. Section 2, Trends and Insights. This section focuses on 3 key trends that I believe are essential for the future of marketing and advertising. Not just because they're gaining traction, but because they reflect wider shifts in cultural expectations, social priorities, and how audiences engage with brands. These aren't trends for the sake of being current. They represent a broader change in how marketing works, what it needs to do, and how it needs to show up. The 3 trends are value-driven branding and cultural relevance, personalisation, and authentic, humanised storytelling. Trend 1, value-driven branding and cultural relevance. There's a clear shift happening in how people choose which brands they trust and support. It's no longer just about the product or the price. It's about what the brand represents and how that is communicated across everything they do. According to Endelman's Trust Barometer 2022, nearly 60% of people say they make a purchasing decision based on a brand's values. This trend is especially pronounced among Gen Z, who increasingly expect brands to engage with social, political, and cultural issues. Brands that avoid taking a stance or appear to sit on the fence are often seen as out of touch, or worse, indifferent. This shift is well supported by consumer brand identification theory, which explains that people are more drawn to brands that reflect their own social identities or personal beliefs. When those values align, the connection becomes more meaningful and often more loyal. Nike's now well-known support for Colin Kaepernick is a good example. While it divides opinion, it also deepened the brand's cultural alignment with its core audience and delivered a measurable sales uplift. But making a statement isn't enough on its own. The real difference lies in whether that stance is matched by internal consistency. Brand activism research highlights the gap between performative and substantive activism. Performative efforts are limited to messaging. Substantive ones are embedded in the business, seen in the hiring, leadership, product development, and culture. In other words, values need to show up off camera as well as on screen. This is where inclusive representation becomes part of the same conversation. Not a separate goal, but an extension of a brand's values in action. We've moved past the stage where simply showing a range of ethnicities or genders in a campaign is enough. According to Adobe's Inclusive Marketing Report in 2021, 61% of consumers say diversity in advertising influences how they view a brand. But this only works when it feels authentic and not symbolic. Representation that feels staged or tokenistic can be just as damaging as having none at all. In my own research, participants were most responsive to campaigns that depicted diversity as normal, not exaggerated or used as statements, but simply reflective of the world around us. The RAF's No Room for Clichés campaign is a very good example. It included women in frontline roles, but without drawing attention to it. One participant commented, "It didn't feel like they were trying to convince me, it just looked like a job someone was doing." That made it more believable and therefore more empowering. This kind of subtle but meaningful shift is supported by the gender schema theory, which explains how repeated exposure to gender roles in media shape what we internalise as normal. Campaigns that quietly challenge those roles, without centering the challenge itself, can shift perceptions more effectively than those that over-explain. Similarly, symbolic annihilation reminds us that the exclusion in media doesn't just admit, it devalues. When we connect a brand's values to inclusive representation, we see a clearer path forwards. A brand's stance on social issues, its internal culture, and the way it portrays people in its campaigns are all read together by audiences. These things are no longer judged independently. They're part of a collective story about how a brand operates and what it stands for. Thus, some actionable insights for practitioners. Firstly, start with an internal alignment. Make sure your brand values are clear, lived and visible inside your organisation. This includes your hiring practices, leadership diversity, and how decisions are made, not just what you say publicly. Consumers will notice if your message does not match your internal reality. Second, build representation into the process, not just the output. Don't wait until the casting or content stage to think about inclusion. It should be considered from the very beginning, when deciding the campaign concept, who it's for, and who is helping to shape it. Third, focus on normalising, not spotlighting. The strongest impact often comes when diversity is integrated naturally. Don't draw extra attention to someone's identity unless the campaign is specifically about that topic. Just showing people doing what they do without the fanfare can shift perceptions in such powerful ways. Fourth, avoid performative messaging. Saying you support a cause isn't enough. Make sure your campaigns reflect actual actions, policies, or long-term commitments that your brand has made. Audiences will quickly spot empty statements, and trust will drop if there's no follow-through. Overall, think of representation as part of your brand identity. Inclusive storytelling shouldn't be reserved for special campaigns. It should be part of how your brand looks, sounds, and behaves all year round. The goal is to reflect the real world, not a curated version of it. Trend 2, personalisation. Alongside purpose and representation, one of the most significant shifts in consumer expectations today is the demand for personalisation. People no longer want to feel like just another customer. They want to feel recognised as individuals with distinct needs, preferences, and priorities. This isn't just about using someone's first name in an email. It's about delivering experiences that feel tailored, timely, and human, whether that's through product recommendations, customer service, or how a brand communicates day to day. A 2023 report from McKinsey found that 71% of consumers now expect personalised interactions, and 76% say they're frustrated when those experiences don't happen. That's a clear warning. Brands that aren't personalising are risking disengagement. From a theoretical perspective, this reflects principles found in relationship marketing theory, which focuses on building long-term engagement through trust and mutual values, not just pushing transactions. Personalisation supports this by turning brand communication into a dialogue rather than a broadcast. We also see this trend in service-dominant logic, which argues that value is not delivered to customers but co-created with them. The more relevant the experience feels, the more value the consumer perceives, and the more likely they are to return. A practical example of this is how Marks & Spencer engages with customers on social media. When someone reaches out with a question or issue, responses are quick, specific, and often followed up with a solution that's tailored to the individual, not a copy-paste message. Whether it's helping with a missing order, offering style advice, or even just acknowledging feedback in a thoughtful way, the result is the same. The customer feels seen. That kind of responsiveness doesn't just resolve problems, it builds emotional connection. It tells the customer, you're not just another number to us, and that feeling drives loyalty. In my own experience with marketing and brand building, I've seen this pattern repeat. When communication feels direct, responsive, and honest, especially in small businesses or niche communities, it dramatically improves engagement. People are more likely to support brands that support them in ways that feel personal. But here's where it becomes more strategic. Personalisation also allows brands to cut through the noise. In a crowded market, tailored content is far more likely to land. According to a report from Salesforce in 2022, personalised messages see a 4 times higher engagement rate than generic ones. Thus, some actionable insights for practitioners could be: firstly, use customer data to add real value. Go beyond names and email segments. Use what you know, like past purchases, browsing history, and location, to recommend products, send timely messages, or offer location-based promotions. For example, if a customer frequently buys summer clothing and lives in a warm climate, you might highlight similar items during seasonal sales. Secondly, adopt smart technology to personalise the experience. Tools like augmented reality and intelligent chatbots can make shopping feel more tailored and interactive. GPS-powered apps like those used by Starbucks can send personalised offers when a customer is near a store, without being invasive. Thirdly, create content that feels truly personal. Platforms that allow you to send custom videos, thank you messages, birthday wishes, product tips based on individual customer data. These moments of recognition don't just increase engagement, they strengthen emotional loyalty. Fourth, keep it human and thoughtful. Whether it's replying to a DM or crafting a tailored promotion, customers can tell when something's been done with care. Marks & Spencer, for instance, stands out for its quick, personal replies on social media that show an understanding and attention, not just automation. And fifth, avoid overdoing it. Personalisation should feel helpful, not overwhelming or intrusive. Be clear about how you use customer data, get consent where needed, and focus on creating value, not just visibility. Trend 3, authentic humanised storytelling. We've reached a saturation point with polished, overproduced content, Across sectors, people are responding more to brands that feel human, accessible, and honest. In a crowded digital landscape, tone matters just as much as messaging. This aligns with social cognitive theory, which suggests that people learn and make decisions through observation, especially when they see someone they perceive as relatable or similar to themselves. If storytelling is rooted in real experience and emotional honesty, it becomes more persuasive. The parasocial interaction theory also helps to explain why people develop strong emotional connections with influencers and brand figures. These are relationships built on perceived familiarity, trust, and consistent tone, not one-off campaigns. In the Ford Explorer's Men's Only Edition campaign, for example, humour was used to expose a long history of exclusion in the automotive industry. The campaign was effective, not because it lectured or moralised, but because it explained the problem clearly and confidently without overcomplicating it. Participants in my study pointed to the tone as the reason that it stood out. In my own experience in running a small business, I've also seen how transparency builds engagement. While I shared aspects of my personal life, particularly around my son's birth and the ongoing challenges, I noticed a shift in how people responded. The brand became less about the product and more about the connection. That wasn't a tactic, it was a reflection of real life, but it created trust. However, authenticity can't be manufactured. Jill and Allgard in 2018 warn against the rise of commercialised empowerment, when campaigns use empowerment language without backing it up through internal structures or actions. When audiences sense that, trust is damaged quickly. So, some actionable insights for practitioners to make storytelling feel real and build insights. Firstly, use real voices, not scripts. Feature real people with lived experience, whether it's customers, employees, or community members. Avoid overly polished scripts or actors that feel disconnected from the story. Let people speak their own words. Secondly, show behind the scenes. Share honest, unfiltered content. This could be how a product is made, your team working, or even challenges you face as a brand. People connect with what feels real, not perfect. Thirdly, keep the tone human and consistent. Whether it's a video, a caption, or a campaign, the tone should feel like a real person is talking. Avoid corporate jargon, stay consistent across platforms so your brand feels like someone they know, not just a logo. Back up your message with real action. Don't talk about empowerment or inclusion unless your business is actually doing the work behind the scenes. Make sure what you say matches what you do, otherwise people will lose trust. And fifth, co-create with your audience. Invite people to share their stories, opinions, or content. Use what they create, with permission, in your marketing. This builds emotional credibility and shows that your brand listens, not just talks. So, final reflections from this section. These trends aren't about following what's popular. They reflect a deeper shift in how marketing is evolving to meet new audiences' expectations. Each one speaks to a different but equally important challenge facing brands today. Value-driven branding is about trust and alignment. More than ever, consumers care about what a brand stands for and whether its actions match its messaging. Taking a position and following through internally has become a key part of how loyalty is built. Personalisation speaks to the need for relevance. People want to feel recognised, not as part of a segment, but as individuals. Whether it's tailored recommendations, a thoughtful message, or responsive service, the brands that get it right stand out because they listen. Authentic storytelling is about how brands connect. In a landscape full of noise, what cuts through is honesty. The tone of a campaign, how real it feels, how much it reflects lived experience, can make the difference between remembered or ignored. Each trend brings its own insight. Some brands will focus on one, others may find natural overlaps, but none of them should be treated as optional. They're signals of what audiences now expect: substance, relevance, and humanity. The key takeaway? Good marketing today is less about perfect presentation and more about meaningful presence. The brands that show up with purpose, with attention to individual experience, or with honest human tone, those are the ones who will stay relevant in the years ahead. Section 3. Career progression and personal development. To finish, I just want to be honest about how much has changed for me, personally and professionally, since starting this MA. I came into it thinking it would help me grow my business. I wanted to learn how to market children's clothing more effectively, maybe build my following and improve my sales. That was the goal. But it's ended up being so much more than that. When I started my business, it was simple: buy wholesale, design my own clothes, post daily, build up a customer base, and for a while that worked. But looking back now, I can see I was just ticking boxes. I was showing up online every day because that's what everyone told me to do. But I wasn't really saying anything. I didn't know who my audience was beyond surface level, and I wasn't thinking long term. I was just reacting. It felt productive, but it wasn't building anything solid. Then, my son was born, and everything shifted. His birth was traumatic, and life since then has looked very different to what I imagined. He's likely going to need a lot of support as he grows, and that's made me rethink everything, including what kind of business I want to build and how it can work around our life and not against it. This MA gave me the space and the tools to pause and figure that out. I've learned that marketing isn't just about visibility, it's about meaning. Through my research, I started to understand how much things like values, representation, and authenticity matter, not just for big brands, but for people like me. Running a small business isn't just about selling things, it's about building something that feels honest and human. So I've decided to take a step back this summer, around 6 weeks, to rethink and rebuild my brand. I want to flip it on its head. I'm going to move towards unisex streetwear for kids, make clothes that work for families like mine, to keep sharing our story, not as a strategy, but because it matters. I want people to see the people behind the brand, not just me, but my son, our life, and the things that we care about. And I want to do it better this time. I want to understand who my customer is properly. I want to understand what they need, what they're looking for, because I wasn't doing that before. I was just posting and hoping it landed. But now I want to build a brand that feels like an extension of me, because I love my brand and I'm very proud of it. But I want that to come through in how it looks, sounds, and feels, both online and offline. The trends I've looked at, value-driven branding, personalisation, and storytelling, aren't abstract ideas to me. They're exactly what I need to focus on going forward. I want people to buy from my brand because they get it, not just because it showed up on their feed, because it means something to them, because it reflects something that they care about. The hope is that long term, this business gives me the freedom to leave my current job and move into full-time self-employment, not just for the sake of it, but so that I can build work around my family, around my son, and around what life now demands. I want to be there for him, I want to have the flexibility, and I want to be able to my work to support that and not compete with it. This MA didn't just help me improve my business. It helped me to understand what kind of business I want to run and what kind of person I want to be while I'm running it. I've grown a lot, I've changed a lot, and I'm honestly really grateful that I've had the chance to step back and figure things out. Thank you for listening.